Hello everyone, Jules here. Today I'd like to talk about the topic of the Book of Revelation and how that relates to the Esoteric Path. So, to begin with, I have a great book here that is written about the Book of Revelation. It's called Revelation, a Shorter Commentary by G.K. Beale. Here is the book. This is one of the best books that I have found about the Book of Revelation. And the Book of Revelation is the final book of the New Testament of the Bible. And this is a great book because it outlines all of the symbolism of the Book of Revelation. And it gives such a great commentary that is very understandable for each of the 22 verses of the Book of Revelation. So I'm going to talk about what's in this book, but to begin with, I wanted to talk about how this relates to the Esoteric Path and how the Book of Revelation has been such a huge influence on esoteric thought and particular major figures of the Esoteric Path. So I'm just going to start with that first before I talk about what's in the book. Now, the Book of Revelation influenced many major figures throughout history, particularly those who promoted and were influenced by esoteric thought and the Book of Revelation in particular. One of them is William Blake. William Blake was one of the first people. So the Book of Revelation very much influenced his art. I think a lot of people don't realise the kind of Gnostic type of Christianity that William Blake followed, and because of that, that is why his art is so full of symbolism and biblical themes. So I think that helps to explain a lot more about what influenced William Blake and why he did create the kind of art with the kind of themes that he did. So William Blake was very much influenced by the Book of Revelation. Then you start to move into magic, and one of the first magicians, of course, John Dee. John Dee was greatly influenced by the Book of Revelation, and he did refer to Babylon. Babylon is very much mentioned in the Book of Revelation. Now, the Book of Revelation kind of mentions Babylon in two different contexts. So you can think of Babylon the place, Babylon the city, or you can think of Babylon in the context of the Lady Babylon or the Whore of Babylon. So John Dee did very much focus on that as well, particularly in his correspondence writings and his letters with Kelly, because John Dee worked with Kelly when he was creating the Enochian alphabet and Enochian magic itself. So some people may not be quite aware of that either. So the Book of Revelation very much influenced the magical thought of John Dee. So Edward Kelly was the person who worked with John Dee in the formulation of that type of magic. The other person of great note is Eliphas Levi. Eliphas Levi was very much influenced by the Book of Revelation, and that kind of stemmed out of Rosicrucianism and Christian Kabbalah. So you can see, these very, very notable figures of the esoteric world and magic, very much influenced by the Book of Revelation. Then we get to another person who probably really needs no introduction, and that is Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley, of course, was influenced by John Dee, but the two major influences of his life were both Eliphas Levi and the Book of Revelation. And that's not really surprising when you think about Crowley's philosophy of Thelema, because Thelema had Babylon, the Lady Babylon, or the Whore of Babylon, very much as a goddess, and as a very prominent, important, major figure of Crowley's Thelema. And because the Book of Revelation was such a huge influence with its symbolism and ideas, Crowley wrote several books that have the theme of Babylon in them. And also his own tarot, the Thoth tarot deck, I have here. And I'm going to show you the two cards in particular that are influenced particularly by the Book of Revelation. So the two cards in particular that are also mentioned in the Book of Thoth book for the tarot is this card. So this image is particularly representing Babylon, who Crowley saw as a goddess, the goddess Babylon, riding astride the beast in the form of a lion. So this was a very important image and concept for Crowley. Very, very important. He saw this as one of the most important cards in the deck for that reason. So this is completely inspired by the Book of Revelation, and especially where you can see the multiple heads on the lion. All of this is straight out of the Book of Revelation. And the other card is the Universe card. And for this card, for this image, the goddess of the universe here, Crowley saw as the daughter of Babylon, the daughter of the goddess Babylon. So this is another very important image in the deck, and also for the whole philosophy of Thelema. And even these, cherubim in the corners here, representing the four archangels. So these are the two main cards. And if I quickly just go back here to this book, it's called, this particular version has been reviewed on my channel It's got a title of The Practice of Enochian Magic, but the main book in here is Crowley's Vision and the Voice. And the Vision and the Voice particularly mentions Babylon in here. There are several of the ethers that refer to Babylon, the goddess Babylon, that Crowley saw as a goddess. So this is The Vision and the Voice is one of the books that's particularly important to Crowley. So he saw this as one of his most important writings. So there's a little bit of a background of why the Book of Revelation has got such a strong influence to esoteric thought and very prominent esoteric figures. So now just to get back to this book about Revelation. I'm just going to have a quick look here before I talk about what's in the book, and I'm just going to have a look here to see if there's anything else that I particularly want to mention. And I was just going to mention that the Book of the Law of Crowley's as well. At times he mentions Babylon, the goddess Babylon, as the Scarlet Woman. So sometimes that concept is used instead. Okay, to talk about this book, Book of Revelation by G.K. Beale, still available. It's quite a thick book. It's 500 pages, 550 pages. I'm really impressed with this book because the Book of Revelation is so important to the esoteric path and esoteric thought. I have been wanting a book for a while that particularly talks about the Book of Revelation and just helps in the overall understanding and symbolism of the Book of Revelation. This is probably I think it's the best book. I know there's other books on this topic, but I really like this one. The subtitle is a shorter commentary, even though this is 550 pages, because the author did write a much larger book, but this book has everything you need on this topic. So, to talk about what is in here, there is a chapter on every one of the 22 verses, and there is a great index or cross-reference. It's not your usual type of index, because it's kind of a combination index where you have got it's really an index of the scripture that also ties in with other writings, particularly the Old Testament as well. So that's really useful. So I think that's terrific, and it not only cross-references with the Old Testament. So what is happening here with this cross-reference index? It's highlighting the fact that the Book of Revelation was written after the Old Testament, and it actually brings up a lot of concepts and ideas that were already in different parts of the Old Testament. So that's really useful. That's another way of understanding the Book of Revelation as well. And even cross-referenced with parts of the Dead Sea Scrolls, even some ideas that were in that are in that. Even Hellenistic literature, early Christian writings. It's really quite very well referenced. So I love the way that each of the 22 chapters is on each of the 22 verses. So what you get here is an outline. This is part of the introduction. It's really worth reading the introduction. It's really worth reading. I mean, this is the kind of book that you dip into, you use it as a reference book. I mean, you really wouldn't read it cover to cover, but it's really, really great for understanding the book of Revelation. So to give you an idea of what's in the book, the way that it's set out, there's the introduction is the first chapter. Then you've got what he's calling commentary on the text, which is commentary on each of the 22 verses. So there's 22 chapters, but they're grouped according to the verse numbers. But I'm just going to mention the particular chapters and particular verses that are very symbolic and that people would be particularly interested in. You've got the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, the 7 visions or signs. So all of these are some of the particular chapters with the corresponding verses. You've got the 7 bowls. So, you can already tell there's, the number 7 is quite important in the book of Revelation. You've got the final judgment, and you've also got the particular verses about Babylon and the beast. There is a chapter on, because verse 20 particularly is about the millennium, the millennium that we're in or is to come. And then you've got this index that I was talking about, this great index at the back. And he just describes all of the context of all of this. And after the millennium, there's also the chapter in regard to the verses on the new creation, the new heaven and the new earth. Now, one thing I need to mention here is you need to keep in mind that when reading the Bible from an esoteric approach and including this book, is that if you are approaching it that way, you are not going to take this in such a literal sense as Christian writing normally is. So this author is a theologian expert on the book of Revelation, but always remember that if you are reading this from an esoteric perspective, you don't need to be caught up in some of the wording that you think is too conventional Christian kind of thing. I think just focusing on the symbolism of each of the verses is the most important thing. And the other thing that I really like for each of the chapters and each of the verses, there are suggestions, he's calling them suggestions for reflection. And you don't have to use that from a religious perspective. I mean, you can just choose these different types of points for each of the chapters that that you want to reflect on. And I also love the way that there's words, particular words that are written in bold. Like, for example, the page that I'm on now, which is referring to verse 1, and the highlighting of the word mystery. I mean, that's important. Just think of all of the concepts related to the word mystery. So there is a lot in this book. I think it's a great book. I think for people who want to understand the book of Revelation this is a very well thought out way of approaching the book of Revelation, and particularly when you relate the book of Revelation to esoteric thought. I mean, that's why I got this book. This book wasn't written, of course, for that reason, but you can definitely use this book with an esoteric approach for that reason. You can definitely do that. That's why I got the book. So I think it's a great book for people who want to find out a lot more about the book of Revelation and the symbolism and the ideas, and also think about how this ties in with esoteric thought and very prominent people from the esoteric path that were very much influenced by the book of Revelation, and why. And if you can't see that in this book, I don't think there's many other books that you may necessarily want to use or want to approach. I just think this is just organised in such a way that it's really, really good for getting to a better understanding of the book of Revelation. So I'll put some details below the video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.